bits of information.
Cool. Thanks, Peter. Chad?
I'm Chad Eilander. I work at CBS Health in systems administration.
If you guys could speak up just a little bit, I think it's.
I'm interested in research going on in Phoenix and understanding more about insurance and their role in blockchain and network control in the community.
Well, Chad, you want to talk a little bit about the applied research program because you're going to be part of the.
Yeah, and I'm also part of the applied research program starting this next year with blockchain and identity. And so I'm interested in learning how we can apply identity or different identity tactics to blockchain to create something that's beneficial to the community, but both at large as well.
And Chad's a regular here at Desert Blockchain Camp, and he and I are usually here on Thursday afternoons and then Saturday afternoons. And Chad's doing some really, really cool stuff, but he's set up a Libra testnet. So if you're not familiar with Libra, that's the Facebook consortium that's looking to launch a stable coin. And there's been a lot of interest in that, let's say the least.
Oh yeah, if you're interested in walking through that, let me know. I'll walk you through it. You can log on from your house and make some money. So it's kind of an interesting application.
Well, it's testnet money, so it's not real money.
Well, yes, what I mean.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And we also fly drones in here, and we want to use the Libra testnet to kind of keep track of drone games and robotics games and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely interested in building that program. Stacy.
I'm Stacy Labs. I came here tonight because I'm very interested in blockchain insurance. My background is an instructor at boot camps for data science, for blockchain, and particularly software smart contracts. And then full stack development. I just got done with a gig at Amazon teaching them full stack. Personally, for me, it's blockchain and data science are my primary interests. I really wanted to bring people up for a lot of great things about Marsh.
Cool. Sherry already introduced herself. Bo?
My name is Bo Kuo. I have a small software company that most focus on data visualization, which I have spatial data. And I'm seeing founder, I apologize. I couldn't quite catch.
Speak up. The acoustics in here are horrible. Sorry.
All right. My name is Bo Kuo, and my company is Logistic Research in Tennessee. And we are focused on spatial database and visualization and analysis. We have software products. We also conduct consulting services in state government. And I'm here because I'm still trying to wrap my brain around blockchain because I heard the promises, for quite a few years, and I'd like to see the mechanism, the infrastructure, and the workings of it. Sometimes I feel like I have to really involving some project to really understand the programming perspective from actually application perspective. So we'll just see, essentially learning for marketers like you guys.
Bo, you also worked with the Maricopa County, correct?
Yes, I have 10 years for my career with Maricopa County.
Yeah.
Problem of transportation and later assessors office, like dealing with parcels and dealing with transportation assets management.
Cool. Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, I'm Scott. I guess if there's a background, I'm like an automation system administrator, programmer. As far as why I'm here, I consider myself sort of a science so I economy and I've contributed to Monero for the past couple of years, so I mean, really bright getting people off
Cool. And Scott did a great presentation on Monero about, I think it's about 2 years ago now.
Yeah, it's when we were down at the school.
Yeah, at the library.
Or at the library.
So I consider Scott to be a real resource in Monero and privacy and those aspects if you're interested. All right, well, that brings us to our speakers tonight. And we have Cory Williams and Harish Naik from Marsh. And I'll bring your presentation up in a minute. So anything you two want to say before we get started going into the presentation?
No, I think we're ready for the, because we'll say a lot in the presentation. Yeah, we can do it.
Okay.
So Marsh Digital, which is the part of Marsh that we're with, is less than 2 years old. So we're a completely new group. We call ourselves a disruptor group, coming into a 180-year-old company to bring them into the 21st century and come up with some better solutions on how to do things they're experts at and do well, but can do better. And so that's a lot of the role we play there at Marsh. And Marsh is one pillar of Marsh and McCullen, who you might have heard of a little bit more. They have 4 different operational companies underneath them, and we're one of those operational companies.
Cool.
So my name is Harish, and I'm one of the chief architects in Marsh Digital, primarily focusing on all things digital. Right. So we are trying to see what are the processes, capabilities that we can digitize in Marsh, as well as working with a lot of startups and our plans and trying to see the paper-based processes converting to digital, what happens, what are the new capabilities that we can build, and then leverage blockchain, IoT, any emerging technologies, see how that fits into this whole ecosystem. So that's our primary focus.
And Harish, you're involved with the Hyperledger meetup?
I used to be involved in the Hyperledger meetup, and since when I was working at American Express, then after joining Marsh, so Marsh Digital here works as a startup. So we got so much involved in it that I couldn't spare time for the other meetup. Okay. So I've been absconding from that meetup for almost a year and a half now.
Well, I did want to mention early in the session that they're in Phoenix in March. I think it's the 3rd through the 6th of March 2020 will be the Hyperledger Global Forum, which is a big event. It'll be down at the convention center, and there are people in town that are looking to create some events associated with that, maybe have some of the speakers from the Global Forum talk outside of the Global Forum. So you'll hear more about that.
Yeah, so and do we reach out to you if we're interested in finding more about that and what they're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm kind of bringing the resources together, but there are some folks that want to basically create some events, highlight Arizona, the blockchain and the innovation ecosystem in Arizona. So
then I think we should reach out to Jen and more details.
I think so too. Yeah, we'll reach out to you because especially we've got the #1 innovation university in the nation for the past 5 years running right here in our backyard. So there's a lot of opportunity to showcase Arizona. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and start to screen share, maybe. Let's see. Here we go.
So while he's doing that, we're going to talk about some use cases. But as far as the subject of blockchain is concerned, insurance is new to the blockchain, but you're going to see there's a lot of opportunity in the insurance world that could benefit from using distributed ledgers like blockchain. So we'll give you some use cases, and then some companies that are already doing it will tell you a little bit about those.
And Eileen, if you could check to make sure that the screen share is going, I'd appreciate it. So, okay. I'll advance the slides for you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to the next one because you already know us.
So the current challenges that we have. So even before this, right? Marsh is acts like a broker. So it's one of the top brokers of insurance across the globe, and we are the brokers for corporate and commercial insurance. So not the personal lines at all. So we deal with the Fortune 1000 companies. We deal with all the billionaires, population, the politicians, and all those things. So like if you're insuring company like Amazon, Walmart, and others, so you have to deal with multiple carriers now, and then these carriers cannot. I mean, they are not self-sufficient. So there are reinsurers who are backing up the insurance company, right? So you've got this entire chain. Now, a typical insurance. Let's take a simple example of Walmart. So their risks are humongous. So one carrier says, "Hey, I cannot insure you completely. So I will just insure the first 20%. The remaining 20% is insured by a different carrier. Then another remaining 20% insured by different carrier. That's how this layering happens because nobody wants to take the risk completely. If Walmart goes bust, that insurance company is bound to go bust. Right? So they are risk averse from their standpoint. So, and then to support them, there are reinsurers, right? So the reinsurers support the insurance company. Right? That's how the chain goes. Now, when you are insuring a $10 million, $15 million risk, then the paper trail is amazingly huge. Just to buy your home insurance, your auto insurance, you get like a 10, 15 page document whenever the renewal comes in. And God knows what other documents keep on coming in the mail when I just tear it and throw it away because I don't understand. If you think about these big companies, there are like documents after documents coming in. Brokers look at it, they sift through it, identify what the risk is, they work with the clients, then they work with carrier number 1, 2, 3, send this document back and forth. There is that underwriting process that we will talk about, so that's huge. So this is the entire gamut of all this thing. There is data everywhere, but it's like sea of information with all the paper trails. Now, identifying, process efficiency is horrible. So in this entire process. So when we started looking at some of these capabilities, right? So it was. We wanted to sift through and find out what's the baby step that we can start looking at and take and start showing efficiencies. So one of the big things was we've got gig economy workspace coming in. So somebody is a Uber driver, a Lyft driver. They work in a construction company for a couple of hours. Again, do Uber, or they're doing DoorDash. Right? So one person doing all these things. How can I start looking at on-demand insurance? So I don't want to have a traditional insurance where I pay $100 for this, even though I don't do this work. I'm still paying. So, and my work is changing continuously. So how do I come in and do this constantly? That's one of the aspects that's totally new and that's quickly coming along. So that's one area that we wanted to look at. And the current technology does not support it. Right? So how do I bring in IoT? How do I bring in blockchain? And then see, can I do some of these POCs? So that's one area that we have constantly on the eye of it. And we'll give you some examples as well what we've been POCing. The next one is fraud, which is very common. Now think about this, right? This is so much information, the sea of data. Somebody who has to do a fraud, they can easily carry out fraud because nobody has a single source of truth. Right? So they're buried in information. Nobody knows what is the policy document details. I can inflate some of my issues, and then I can start pounding saying that this is the problem, this is the problem, give refund, and then somebody has to refund because nobody can correlate what the original policy details were and what the claims were. So that's one of the things. The third thing is policy creation and claims processing. We'll divide it into two. And this is something which we have actually implemented the capability just a month back, and we'll talk about that. But policy creation is when I'm working with Walmart's risk management team and me as a broker, they are sending me like tons and tons of information, whether I'm doing their entire Walmart warehouse property insurance, their Sam's Club's property insurance across the globe, across a location, and then their workers' compensation, depending on how many workers are working on that. So they are just sending me this information, and me as a broker, I am trying to sift and I'm trying to tell them that, okay, you need a property liability insurance, you need a workers' comp. Here are the construct of your program. Here's the premium. Here are the coverages, and I will be sending that information to the risk management team. They'll look at it. They'll modify it. So this is back and forth that's happening. It's either in an email, fax, the snail mail, whatever it is. Right? This is sort of information. Once I align with them, then and then only I will think that should I go to carrier one or should I go to multiple carriers? Should I layer it? Like post 20% this, that, everything. That's up to me. Then my communication with all these carriers begin. Again, that would be email, fax, or everything. Once I align with them, then I go back to the client and say, hey, I've aligned with this carrier. These carriers seem to be right for you guys. But then they come back again and say, oh no, I don't like this carrier. I don't like that. So you've got those things as well. So this whole communication is happening either email or paper-based. So you see the efficiency of this, right? And if I'm dealing with multiple clients and like tens and hundreds of carriers, then that's where the communication just multiplies. So how do we bring efficiency into this? That's one thing that we have worked on. Claims processing goes like that. If I dash my car, I have to call up and then start the claims process, right? So post notice of loss is the word that's constantly being used in the insurance industry. So as soon as an accident occurs, can I take the picture? Can I initiate the claims process where I have a means where I can upload the pictures, then an automated process kicks in, it looks at the picture, excludes fraudulent claims, and then identifies that, okay, the issue has occurred. It pulls up the policy document, maps it, and the settlement process starts. So can this process work rather than me calling, waiting, giving this information and all those things? It's a long drawn process. So that's something which we have been testing. There are other consortiums that have been testing as well, and we'll talk about those things. Reinsurance is another aspect which we have not touched yet, but there are consortiums who are actively looking at it. Now, reinsurance is where it supports the insurance companies, and they need constant information of what is the risk that they are reinsuring. At least the insurers, like let's say AIG, Chubb, Nationwide, they're closer to the insured. Reinsurance is behind the scenes, so they have no clue if some claims have come through, if some documents have changed, if some property risks have happened. So, I mean, they are on a constant lookout, right? So, how do we bring them into the mix so that it's like single source of truth, bringing in transparency so that they know that they need to adjust their funds accordingly because something's going south. I mean, something's going well. So these are some things where it's predominantly blockchain has been, or blockchain is being POC or piloted. So that's
Let's just go to the next one.
This will quickly skim through. I mean,
We'll
there
go
are
into detail.
there are different areas, right? Initially, it's product risk and pricing. So it's more of marketing. Think about you buying an auto insurance. Initially, you fill in the details on a Geico website or the Zebra website, which will send it to the multiple carriers, bring the quote information back, And that's the pricing aspect. So the risk is being priced, and then you accept it, you deny it, and you bind the policies. So that's the first aspect. Underwriting and risk management is where the actual risk underwriting happens. I mean, how much should you pay the premium based on what your risks is the underwriting process. Then policyholder acquisition is once you become a policyholder with let's say State Farm, with AIG and others, then how do I service it? It could be endorsements, that is any changes to your policy. Do I again have to follow up and then start that process, or can I do that in a seamless manner? Claims, can I do that in a seamless manner? Renewals, how will that work? Can I bring in all the claims in so that gets calculated while I'm renewing my policy? Finance and accounting is again from a broker standpoint. We have to ensure that there's certain things called bordereau reporting. There's a couple of more complexities or jargons that I'll start throwing in. So we as brokers, what we do is we also write the policy. So we are called as managing general agent, MGAs. So the insurers, like the carriers, State Farm, for example, will give us a pen saying that you can also write on my behalf as long as the policy is less than $10 million. Because these carriers do not want to have the burden of dealing with all these clients. They say, okay, you manage it, you give me the cut, and then that's it. Right? So in those cases, we are writing the policies on behalf of AIG and all. But now Marsh as a broker has to work with these carriers and do this invoicing, billing, financial things, and who pays the premium, when, where. So it's a huge mess. Right? So how do you deal with that is one of the areas that has been actively being looked at. And the regulatory and compliance is it's common across financial industry or insurance industry, the KYC process and all these things that are applicable.
Okay, so go to the next one. Okay, thank you. So this is your.
Yep. So this is the placement process that I was talking about. So what we did is we have we Dow Chemicals and Shark Ninja, a couple of clients that we do, and they placed a policy, something called as trade credit or trade risk policy. So what this means is, let's say Walmart decides to buy plastic bags from a company, right? Let's say from Shark Ninja or something, and Walmart does not buy those plastic bags, and that company is making those plastic bags and dumping it into its warehouse. And if Walmart is the only client for that company, Walmart doesn't buy it, this company goes bust. Right? So they buy this in. So it's a risk for them, right? And they want to insure this. I'm just giving this a smaller example, but Dow Chemicals and Shark Ninja, they've got a bigger risk. So this is one of the products that they want to buy. Now, the example that I gave, where Marsh is a broker, so Shark Ninja and Dow Chemicals have dumped all the documents onto us. We sift through it, and then we come up with a detail of this is the risk, these are the premiums that you have, this is the coverage, and all the details to the to this client. Client comes back with the email with all the details. No, I want to change this, I want to change that. Then that negotiation continues. Once that gets aligned, then we send it to the carrier, and then that communication happens. So this is the problem that we took, and then we said the whole purpose, the whole issue over here is that nobody knows where the single source of truth is. Everything is in the email. So let me bring in a distributed ledger, so that we can start having communications, and every change gets recorded onto the ledger here. So we used Hyperledger Fabric just because this is more of a private network that we were setting up, and we had 3 user interfaces created: one for client, one for broker, and one for the carrier. And the setup is on AWS today. we have we created multiple organizations. AI initially I wanted, in order for blockchain to be adopted, first you have to set it up and then invite these people to come in. And then once they have their hands and feet wet, then they start engaging into setting up a node and everything. So that's the policy that I've used in American Express as well. Used it here too. So what we did is we did set up this blockchain network. I had a client user interface, I had a broker and a carrier user interface. So once the documents are received, which we are going to automate as well, the broker creates this the structure of how what risk needs to be insured and what are the pricing details and everything based on the documents provided, and then submits it to the client. The client gets a notification, so we created a workflow structure as well, and the client has to log in. They look at the program structure, and if they feel that something has to be changed, they change it then and there itself. They submit it back to the client. So the first record that gets created when the broker submits it to the client is the first record. Then from that onwards, every change gets recorded onto this fabric. So once that alignment between the broker and the client has happened, so that gets recorded as well, that it's been accepted by the client and it's okay to be sent to the carrier. The carrier starts looking at it, and then they start they update it or append it with the code information. And the carrier, the broker first gets the code. So we don't send the code directly to the client because the broker knows what the client's needs are. And there are multiple cases where the carrier can send an obnoxious code, which we know the client can hate. So that's the negotiation that happens between the broker and the carrier, and that starts getting recorded as well. And then finally, once a broker is happy, then he exposes that particular code to the client. Client likes it. The client accepts it, then the broker accepts it, and the carrier accepts it. So we know what the final record is where all three parties have accepted. So today in the emails, it gets lost. Oh, I didn't do this, I didn't accept this. I mean, the broker has to dig everything because the broker is at loss at both places. Here, it's like it's instantaneous, it's straightforward, and there's nobody waiting for anybody over here. And once that thing has been accepted, then the carrier says, now that you've accepted my quote, I need your financial statement, I need this, I need that. So that they key that information within their UI as well, which again gets added to the record saying additional information required. Then we have enabled Amazon S3 where the broker or the client, they upload the documents. Then the carrier downloads it, they look at it. So that those events get recorded. So from an audit purpose, every action from all these three parties are completely recorded. And that's how we did this with AIG. And I actually met with AIG and Euler. Euler is Allianz's startup thing. So I was in New York last week to meet with both of these people because these two companies, they saw what we built and they wanted to see how can we extend it further. Because there was an efficiency improvement from our perspective, 100%. From their perspective as well, it was a huge performance improvement of operational efficiency improvement because they didn't have to wait for emails and everything. They were just putting the codes in. What your documents, you just log in, you get all the documents associated with that transaction. So it was instant. So that's so we are expanding on that, and this is the live capability.
I was wondering, this is more a business process management. So why it doesn't? I don't think it's necessary to use Hyperledger blockchain to use it. This Hyperledger blockchain is more a decentralized the copies of things all over, so it's temper-proof. Right? But in this is more business processing. You can just write some things outside the blockchain to manage it, replacing emails through the online whatever the information. So everything is in one centralized database to do it.
Right, but who owns that? So let's say I build it.
Okay.
So Marsh builds it. Marsh has one SQL Server database.
Okay.
Now, what I'm doing is I'll be inserting the data that AIG gives me, right? Because the port information is coming from AIG. Now, if I insert it into my database, which is under my control, not that somebody will go in and tamper, but AIG can come back and say that, you know what, I didn't give this port to the call. There is no way to find it. Now, since I've put it on a distributed ledger, right? So you are AIG. Now, when you give me the port information, I'm just appending to that record, which you can see and I can see.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like, think about it
It's
as
identity.
it is, your digital signature is associated. Okay. Now, document gets uploaded. So, you come and say, oh, I didn't see that document at all. I logged into your portal maps to your SQL server. I don't see that document. And I don't have anything to say. But here, when you download the document, when you action it with your digital signature, I'm attaching that to the distributed ledger where the client can see it, I can see it, you can see it, that you took an action. Something happened. And nobody can tamper it.
Okay.
Is there also a level of trust and comfort around the fact that if something were to happen with Marsh and you guys were controlling all the data and everything, then the others would not have that?
Correct.
Or any particular party that's part of the ecosystem, without this distributed ledger technology, you're at risk for one of those parties basically disappearing.
Absolutely.
And then there could be a big hole in the data and the whole process.
Totally. That's a very valid point, right? So today, not today, but tomorrow, AIG will have its own node run. Marsh has its own node run. Data is getting replicated. Marsh goes past my data center goes past. Application will still remain. Right? So because the data resides and all the UI that we have, it will still continue to serve, because now that it's not fetching from this org, it's fetching from that other org which is owned by somebody else within the private network.
Yeah. And it's not even a goes bust, but there's often acquisitions and mergers that can
that's
happen.
A valid point. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're dealing with a new participant effectively because they have merged with somebody else.
Right.
Or someone could hold it hostage too. Or
Yeah.
the company could hold it hostage against the other companies if they get in some sort of disagreement. So you don't want to put yourself in that. And from a regulatory and compliance issue too, for one company to have all the information in their own area would not fly either. The fact that it's a trusted distributed ledger would actually help with regulatory and compliance as well.
The regulators or the auditors, they want to review every detail, especially with Marsh and Aon, since we are like top brokers in this industry. They want to see that everything, every document, what is the code, what are the details, what changes happen, because they don't want us to be like affiliated to only one carrier. So there are a lot of these nuances. If I hold the data, then it's more questions over there. If it is transparent data where AIG is attesting to it and their digital signatures, it's very easy. So that's a huge plus for us.
Very smart. Congratulations on implementing that fast.
Thank you.
That is not easy.
It was tough.
It was really, just thinking about it, that's congratulations. I can sit here when you're talking like, it's like a candy store for me to be like, thinking like you're thinking. So, but just honestly, what you both did, like I could see how you could chat this, you could do everything and depending on the compliance, so you could just sit there and take everything. I'm not always saying blockchain, but in what you're saying, so there's multiple parties. Particularly the players that you're playing with, it's almost like you almost see that redundancy and anything out of that to be able to take it and like how like Insure to go in and just absolutely tag those documents. So if anybody said nope on this date with this hash on this email, so that you wouldn't have to go through even thousands of documents.
Yep, exactly.
Yes,
And back to what he started with too, is the insurance industry is, there's so much paperwork. There's emails, there's actual snail mail still, there's faxes. And so a broker might be working on something, but one company wants to fax him everything, one company wants to email him everything, one company actually physically mails him things. And then he's got to figure out how to put all that together and keep it documented and have the most current information. That's an impossible task. And we even worked with one group in Saudi Arabia where they literally walk paper to another building. They take a piece of paper and they walk it to the next building, and it was crazy. So in that there's so much room for error, and there's so much room for possible fraud, and so just to keep track of that is crazy right now. I don't know how they're even doing it, but this is bringing all that into one place and saving. I mean, it's saving the company, all of the companies involved, so much money, because they aren't doing all those old archaic technologies or even non-technologies and getting a huge amount of loss of fraud.
Kind of an analogy that I make in this area, just the trust in terms of having confidence that the pieces are there or where they're at and all that is the way FedEx used to work is, you drop this package in FedEx, and then you would hope that it would reach me.
Exactly. There is
Where-
no provenance.
Because you had no
Forever.
idea it would, yeah.
And then all of a sudden they came up with this tracking service, and the level of comfort and assurance and surety as to where's the package, when's it going to get there, all that tracking, just that part alone, just opened up this whole level of workability
And trust.
comfort and trust.
That was back to the trust.
Yeah, and the same thing holds true with the ride-sharing services. The taxi companies, you would call up, order a taxi, okay, hopefully they're going to be in there in 20 minutes or whatever. But with Uber and the ride-sharing services, all of a sudden you've got a mobile app, and you think at least where the driver is at. And there's a whole level of trust and assurance that is, surrounds that. I think the same phenomenon, and some of the same characteristics are starting to appear in this distributed ledger technology.
I'm excited to go more. I have my juices flowing.
Oh, my
I'm
goodness.
super excited.
So this is the one that we have already developed. Then we can go to the next one.
Let's go to the next one.
So the next one is again which
proven assurance.
which we have implemented as well. So let me give you an example. The best example that I can start off with, you have a contractor come to your house, right? So today we just let them in do the work, but ideally they should have the right insurance before they start your work. That's the pre-line. Now the contractor is not going to carry like 10-page document and start showing it. So there is something called a certificate of insurance. So it's a tiny certificate which shows that here's your insurance details, here are the coverages, and so forth, so that you have a peace of mind that there is insurance, and then he or she can start the work. So this is at the base level. Now, when we work with AT&Ts and Verizons of the world, AT&T has like tons and tons of contractors who are working for AT&T, and they go to all these companies to fix the work. I mean, they go to Walmart to fix the work, they go here to fix the work. Those clients it's mandated that any AT&T contractor that steps into, let's say, Walmart's premises or State Farm's premises, they ought to have the certificate of insurance. So that's mandatory. So there's like millions and millions of certificate of insurance that needs to be. So AT&T being Marsh's client, AT&T requests, okay, give me these certificates. So then we have to issue those certificates to AT&T, Verizon, and their contractors. We've got oil and gas companies. So oil and gas companies, they onboard like tons of contractors for this work. They come back, another ton gets a contractor gets onboarded. You have to serve their certificates. So there are a couple of issues. in many cases, these some of these contractors, what they do is they buy insurance, they get the work, they cancel the insurance. So the certificate remains valid for a year because nobody's checking.
But
That's that's connecting to your fraud, right? And that's prevalent.
And that is a big issue out there in the real world.
It's prevalent. Secondly, I mean, again, AT&T wants to onboard 1,000 or 2,000 contractors because it has gotten a big work, big contracts. Now, AT&T's risk manager is not going to call Marsh and have them send these 2,000 certificates and then validate it. So they offload this work. So there are third-party agencies who do this work. Now, these third-party agencies will start calling Marsh saying that, send me those certificate and insurance. And we as Marsh will say, who are you and why should I send? Because it contains PII information. I'm not sending. So this whole process is a mess. So what we did is we tackled a couple of things. One is for these gig economy workers or these clients or anybody, we wanted to simplify the certificate generation process. So we created a 6-step process on a website. On our website, they can just go click, I want certificate of insurance. They give a bunch of information, minimal, and then we generate these certs on the fly. And then we issue the certs and we send it. Underneath that, we started putting some stuff on blockchain. Just when the certificate gets issued, what are the coverage limits and all those things? Because let's say the coverage limit is $100. In many cases, these clients, they can reduce the coverage limit as well, because I don't want to show that I'm covered for $100. For your work, I'll just show that I'm covered for only $50, because that's what you need. I mean, if I show you that I'm all my cards, then that's a different thing. So they do that. So we want to ensure that they don't increase the coverage to $150. If they do that, then that's a different thing, because their policy is not set like that. So some of these nuances, we started recording it. Now, it's Marsh and Marsh's client. We still record it on blockchain. But when these third-party people come in and when they start requesting the certificate on behalf of Cory, what we do is we ask for authorization request from these third parties. So that that request goes to Cory. Then Cory authorizes that I'm okay that this XYZ company pulling my certificate. So then that request gets recorded, the authorization request response on the blockchain. And then we issue the certificate. Then Cory gets notification that here's a cert that was requested, that got issued, and we issue that certificate to them. And then they can do whatever it is. But that entire certificate generation and recording it on blockchain is something which we implemented for the first time in the entire insurance industry.
I say, if I thought about doing it, people thought I was nuts, and I'm like, that seems common sense to me that you would do that. That's common sense.
Exactly.
You have to have an audit for the certificates.
Yep.
You see that in drone. I'm an FAA pilot, or the drone pilot, and we do this verify, and you're like, oh yeah, maybe, and then people cancel it in drone. And you're like, you need to blockchain that. You need to know that verify needs to take that. I talked to them. You need to blockchain that so that that person can't say no, it was an error and whatever, that you've got that validity to say whatever cert you did, whatever thing it did, if you crashed that drone wherever, a contractor out here, and they're not doing it. And they've got zero.
Exactly. And then we are bringing the carriers in because I want to ensure that if the carriers have done that policy, if that client attempts to cancel that policy, it immediately gets recorded. Yes. There's just one more thing to that, which we are doing is, so let's say AT&T is onboarding 1,000 plumbers, for example, right? Or electricians and so on. There is a startup called Evident that we have partnered with. So what it will do is it will do identity verification, right? So your license and all those things, that's pretty straightforward, standard verification. But it will also find out based on your license, are you indeed an electrician? Are you indeed a plumber? and they've got runners as well where they'll find out more details about you. That identity verification will also get recorded along with your cert. So it's like when a person walks in, is he indeed a plumber? That details will also be verified. If it fails that, we won't issue the certificate. So all those nuances we're starting to take in time. And again, record it on blockchain because it just remains there forever, right? So that's
then the other thing is the person that's showing up in front of you, Harish, because it says that on his certificate, or is it someone else trying to use Harish's information? So that's where the identity comes in and helps as well.
And this is again, it's been there in production for almost past 6 months, and a lot of our clients are adopting this. It's because they can generate the certificates on their own because we've made it self-serve, and then their contractors onboarding and everything, the verifications happening as well. So, I mean, they don't care whether it's blockchain underneath that. What they care is exactly they know that it's like a verified source of truth. That's it. They're really happy with that.
So just to put this into a time perspective, Marsh has been developing these programs and exploring with blockchain and hyperledger and distributed ledger technology for what, about 2 years now? And
Not quite, just not quite 2 years.
Yeah, it's 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So it sounds like in the last 6 months, a lot of these
has come to
projects
fruition.
have been actually put to the test in the field and so forth.
That's fast.
I was gonna say,
That
is
But like what I was
beyond
explaining to them before is we have to make sure what we use is passes all the security tests, and that took a lot of time underneath doing that while development was happening. So, and we can't use anything that hasn't been FIPS compliant and things along those lines. So we had to ensure whatever we used passed all the hoops and jumps and hurdles that security wants you to go.
Just from a technical question for both of you is technical communication. Like, I mean, you just implement it because this is so neat and so common sense to me. Like, did they just like be one of those rare instances if they said, go ahead and do it, we trust you 100%?
No.
It, or did
So
they,
we
did you have political push? And I'm like, because just technically for 2 years or 6 months, people have what
We could do this. We could do this.
that's what I'm saying. It's like it's that over because we're not that tech savvy, and yet you pulled off something that is technically, politically, people have no idea how hard it is to just pull off.
Okay, so first of all, we love you guys because sometimes it feels like we're knocking our heads against the walls. But when we're trying, we want to move faster.
because it was not easy. We worked with the business for some time because what we wanted them to come back is draw out the process from it, right? Let me have a look at the process, see who the moving core people are, who the entities are, and then is it blockchainable or not? We started from that.
How many didn't know their process?
I mean,
Trust me.
Because
That
there's
was
so
big.
many
That
boxes.
Exactly.
Yeah, they know their box, but they don't know the 70
Yeah.
other boxes
Yeah.
that have it. And
That's the life.
and once you show that to going, hey, wait a minute, you're just one piece of this humongous 1,000-piece puzzle.
So how did you get buy-in from, like you said, 17 different departments? What you're talking about is integrating multiple departments.
So what we did initially is, let's say for the previous one, we spoke to this team, and there are like multiple departments. Right? It was not easy, but we conducted multiple workshops, spent entire day walking through the details, not talking technology at all. Then slowly bringing in what blockchain means, but that too, it's like a simplistic way. It's like telling them that there is one document which is transparent between you and me. It sits here. You write it, I can see it. I write it, you can see it. You screw it, I see it. Right? So that kind of coaching, and then some of them got it. And then this is a team because they have relationship with the carrier, they have relationship with the client. Bringing in AIG and bringing in Dow Chemicals, which is one of the largest clients, it was not easy. Then we brought them in, we started talking to their tech team. They understood it because everybody is tinkering around blockchain in their labs, doing some other things. But yeah, I mean, after that, it was once they got on board, it was a breeze. And the fact that they did not have to lift a finger, write a single code, that they love them as they love that as well. Right? And I knew it because in American Express, we have built a reward capability on blockchain, and we did that in 2018. So I worked with a couple of merchants, and then we did the similar thing. At that time also I knew it, that merchants are not going to set up a limit. Let's give them the simplistic way. We applied the same principle. It was easy. Now they are ready to set up nodes. They are ready to work with us.
But one of the things too is we start with first of all, we have a very dynamic leader. Zastri is our leader, and he's probably the best salesman on earth. But we start with, to the clients we're talking to, what are your pain points?
Well, exactly.
Tell us about your job. Tell us about your pain points. Tell us give us some of your ideas, because the exchange that he's talking about actually was ideas from the business side that then we took and said, hey, we can build this. So and we've had 2 internal hackathons that we found to be very helpful, because we let the business be the big part of it. They don't have to code the thing. They just have to come up with ideas to help improve their own lives, their own things that help improve the business of what Marsh does. And then we're there as coaches and technical advisors that can it be done? Can it be done? And so that gets the buy-in quickly because they're telling us what they want us to solve. We're not going to them saying, oh, we're building a blockchain. We want you to be on it with this. So they're coming to us and saying, help us solve these problems.
That makes sense about how you would visit the pain points, the
right
communication skills, and because that is.
And this is where Node.js, JavaScript, Angular.
It's going to run right.
It's running right now.
Yeah, you just be able to
Yep.
So
stand right on.
how you use Node to communicate hyperledger?
So Hyperledger Fabric Stack, so they have a Node implementation as well. So you can write your chain code using JavaScript.
Okay.
So that's how.
So that's basically the backend piece.
Correct.
You write to. So how many hyperledger nodes? Is it just in your company, or is it actually multiple nodes?
Right now we have set it up on AWS. Right, so it has 2 organizations. One is Marsh, and we assume that AIG will pick up next, or Euler will pick up next. So it's again on AWS where they will start joining the network. Because initially they just wanted to dip their toes and see how it works, what it is or not, right? And now they want to start contributing to this.
Do you see any issue with scalability once you new production?
Right.
Do you see that being a potential issue?
I don't see that because this is not like a transactional system, right? So I don't have like to deal with like 10 transactions per second or 5 transactions per second. Here, this is the communication happening between the 3 parties, right? So I mean, this will be like 3 transactions in 3 days, something like that. So from that standpoint, I don't see an issue. Scalability issue will come into picture where I have multiple channels private channels that I'm hosting, and there are a number of transactions coming through. Then whether I'm able to sustain it or not would be a question that I'll have to think about.
That's a quality problem, and eventually, like everybody's going to. But one thing that you're doing is you're proving to the insurance, this is going to happen, and this is going to reduce a lot of stress for insurance companies, which is the most litigious thing in the world, and the most confused. So you're going to just get the operational performance out. It's going to be amazing. You're going to get less. I mean, your clients are going to love you. So I would hope that, and I think this is a positive thing for blockchain, that the more this occurs, then we figure out the next piece.
Correct.
That's like a quality.
Yep.
Quality
so
problem.
for this, just a simple stat is we actually print 12 million certificates and we actually snail mailed them. So
Like 12 million,
into the postage.
44 cents each.
How many trees is that?
Yeah, exactly. How many trees? Yeah.
And then some of them come back because the client has changed the address, and we've got a store room in Austin where it gets stuck. So that's where we did a self-serve capability where let me give it in the hands of the client, but I am watching because I'm putting everything on blockchain. So that if there is some screw up happening, I know it, right? So that's that. And once you have that, that's it.
So yeah, you're just streaming that out with just you're just banging that out. So then you guys are fast. Once you got the business pieces, then if you're using the Node.js, and you're just able to fly with that.
It is flying right now.
You just fly with that. You can just do it that much anything.
So what's the latency of your cross-country hyperledger? Because I was under the impression that the block needs to be filled before it's being replicated. So if you are transactions small enough, where it does not fill in one block, that will not be replicated all over.
So I think maybe what we'll do is we can have a separate session on how private blockchain network works, right? So the consensus mechanism in a private blockchain is way different than the Bitcoin and Ethereum. So here it's more Kafka based, and then we can walk you through the details. So it's instant. It's instant, right? Because it's trusted parties that you're dealing with. It's a private network. Nobody else can see it. So how these transactions come through, and then the way the ledger is set up, the CouchDB is set up in the Fabric network. Maybe in the next session, probably whenever we can walk you through the technical details of how the record gets inserted, if multiple records come in private blockchain or especially Hyperledger Fabric, how does the illumination happen? We can walk you through that.
In respect to non-disclosure, could you guys come back soon and like give an update on how you can implement IoT? I mean, I'm just like, can you like come back and like show how you're? I mean, this is like real stuff that's really complex. And if you're implementing it with this, I mean, this is just really impressive.
Yeah, Marsh has to come.
So
they have to be. You have to be like, I'm excited. I just want to come to your desk and do my own work and still like lean over your shoulder and see what you're doing and like, chime in.
So I'll give you an example on IoT, right? So a thing that we have not crystallized it yet because there are too many moving parts. Let's take an example of an ice cream factory, a refrigeration truck taking the ice cream and then giving to fries or something, right? So the grocery store is far away. So, I mean, this is more of a European area where we are trying to work this out. The refrigeration truck goes, suddenly the temperature increases.
Right.
And based on the FDA over there, we know that it is going to go back, right? So there is no point in this truck reaching the grocery store and getting that, then sent it back. This comes more in the risk mitigation area.
Right.
So can I send a notice to the ice cream factory saying that send another shipment immediately because this is going to go back? Let's start the claims process. But I'll keep a track of these details on a continuous basis just to see if this refrigeration truck going on this route, is it going bad constantly, right? So trends and patterns. Then should I reroute this truck because every time it goes through this route, something happens, the temperature increase, maybe because the duration is more or something like that, and things go bad. So how do I start mapping those things? So that's one of the areas that we are looking at. That comes in the risk mitigation framework.
Yeah, that's just like candy.
This and the usage-based insurance is another one, which we'll talk about.
Yeah,
you guys.
We have kind of a growing set of participants in Desert Blockchain that are working with IoT.
Okay.
And I think we could build something, or at least have a session that combines blockchain and IoT. Definitely.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do that because we are dealing with autonomous cars and others, right? So
Yeah.
how do I insure risk, and that micro insurance and those things will start coming in because I have no idea about what risk I'm going to write. Because this is,
by the way, we just finished project for society factories, how to price rollover risk for autonomous vehicles. So I'm not without many details, but soon report is going to be out, and you might.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, when that does come out, if you would be so kind as to share it with Jay, so then Jay can share it with the community, that would be
It's
fantastic.
more pricing thing, but there is aspects of blockchain that can be embedded.
What I'd like to do with the IoT stuff is some of the AI stuff. Like I'd love to be able to build like some think of like a prototype in here to test some of those theories.
We'll go ahead and cruise through this, but I would like to say before we move on, this whole space is designed to be conducive to IoT. We fly drones in here, we're building robots, and we really, one of the advantages of this big warehouse, rough as it is, with rain pouring through the ceiling, is we can pretty much do whatever we want in here. And so we definitely have an IoT focus here. So you want to go on to the next slide?
Yeah, let's go on to the next one because we've talked a lot about the fraud in the insurance industry and how many holes and it's not just fraud, it's human error. I mean, there's so much loss that it adds up to $80 billion lost in the insurance industry. So something like blockchain could be very easily help to solve the fraud chain, first of all, because of the transparency of blockchain. If you're committing fraud or you're skimming funds, this is not where you want your stuff to be, is on a blockchain. So we all know about how it records every document. So number one down here, can stop the counterfeit certificates. We talked about that when we have now the proof of insurance. We just talked about it's very easy to have a certificate that maybe you paid for 2 years and then you canceled it, but you show up saying, oh, here's my certificate, even though it's no longer valid. So those kind of things can be stopped by putting it on a blockchain. The double payment for claims, because you've got a carrier over here and a carrier over here, and someone filing claims to both carriers, but they don't, nobody knows what the right hand and left hand are doing, so then they pay before they can figure it out, or they never figure it out. And so there's so much of that claims, especially when you have something along the lines of a natural disaster, where there's going to be a million claims coming in all at once, high dollar claims, and they're just trying to wrap their head around what even happened, let alone trying to say, oh, wait a minute, Joe Smith has already filed 3 claims. So this is where we can help stop that. Unregistered brokers and sellers too, because a lot of times someone might have an older license, or they know the spiel and they're talking to a small company or something. Oh yeah, we can do your insurance for you. We can set you all up, and then something happens and they find out, oh, wait a minute, that person really wasn't licensed to do that. So guess what? No payment to you. So, and that happens a lot out there, especially when it's a smaller area. So this is where we can help with this. So, and we'll have the appendix in this at the end. So this EtherSIC is an insurance company using blockchain to help mitigate fraud. So you have the URL in the appendix.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the in the case of the certificate insurance being digitally signed on blockchain, so the receiving party of the certificate. So if the insurer cancels his or her insurance, and the receiving the holder of the certificate will be notified automatically, or they have to go online?
No. Automatically. Okay. So yeah. Because you are going to post that particular person, right? The contractor is coming to your location to do something.
Right.
You will be notified immediately, because I have the folder information, because they have to write the folder information in the certificate. So we'll notify immediately that it's been cancelled for something. Right? So please action accordingly, or it's up to you. Right?
Okay. Even though I might only hold the insurance certificate, which is 2 years, but as soon as there's cancellation, I will notify.
Because that's one of the fraudulent areas
that they'll immediately cancel it, they'll get the money, but then they'll get your work as well.
But how do I know this certificate is authentic? It's not a fake. So maybe the guy can walk in and say, hey, here's my certificate of insurance.
That's a good point. So it's very difficult to see.
Why don't we address that offline?
Yeah.
Okay. Good
But
point.
that's a very valid point.
Okay, so we're on the next slide. I believe.
Yeah, we're on the next slide. So again, we've talked you're going to see a lot of crossover here. We've talked a little bit about that because it takes time to get all the required information. So that's where there's some loopholes that people can take advantage of. So like, let's say creating false claims. That is a big problem in the insurance industry, is people can create false claims. So whereas if they have to do like the police report, the evidence forms, things along those lines can be put on the blockchain so they can be certified and verified that accident or that incident actually happened. So that will help facilitate payments. Another thing about putting things on blockchain too is let's go back to a natural disaster. A natural disaster is happening, and we have all the information we need that this group of people that we insure are in this area. Let's say it's New Orleans. They're getting hit with a hurricane. We know this group of our people are in this area, and because that's already recorded on a blockchain. Now, granted, you can put that stuff in a database and everything too, but this is all easier to have, because then you could say these people need, I'm making up these numbers, these people need $1,000 right away for living expenses, to get to the shelter, to get food, to get transportation. We know as a fact that they're in this area, so they are impacted, or they're getting ready to be impacted. We can issue those initial first payments before they even file a claim, because all that information is on a trusted network on a blockchain.
This is called as parametric insurance. So because I'm getting the data from the weather service, we know that the wind speed has increases up to 100 miles an hour when the settlement starts. So
Exactly. So and things like flooding. The water's gone to a certain level. So there's a lot of things, and this is where IoT also can come in. A lot of things that can trigger the knowledge and the information on the blockchain, that you now have an event happening that now you have to take action for the people you're insuring because of that event. And you can get that done a lot faster. I know when Katrina did happen, a lot of insurance companies flooded Baton Rouge, which was the closest, safest place outside of it. So then the people had to go to Baton Rouge and talk to insurance companies, and they had mobile insurance too. But you still had to physically go to an insurance person somewhere in that area and say, my house is gone, my car's gone, everything I own is gone. I need money, I need something, I need food, I need some way to move my family forward in this disaster. So it was still a length of time before money started coming into the pockets of people that were impacted immediately and needed help immediately. And we all know about Katrina, how hard it was to even get FEMA in there to help people. So that was a nightmare from the insurance standpoint, and a nightmare from everything else. So things like this could actually help get them moving faster. So okay, so property and casualty. Did we move on? Let's move on to the next one. Property and casualty. Well, same kind of thing. It's as it says here, 48% of all U.S. premiums are property and casualty. But again, we're back to human error. We're back to data entry. We're back to coordination against all these different parties who have 75 different ways to communicate via email, or if they use Slack or WhatsApp or anything, and you're trying to gather all that information into one, it can be a nightmare. So again, back to having physical assets on a blockchain can help you speed up those the payments and know that what has to be paid to each person. Now here's back where we were talking about sensors. So the auto insurance is already doing this. In fact, now you're seeing pretty funny commercials. Don't mess with my discount, because they've got a sensor in their car that's saying exactly how fast they're driving, and their insurance rate is calculated immediately as they are driving. So then they pay. I'm
does
sorry,
not
what?
work.
What?
It does not.
What do you say?
I try to install it, and then I try to use it.
Yeah.
I rip it out.
Horrendous. I mean,
Oh,
then
is it really?
oh my God!
Oh.
Don't even try it.
Well,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely,
I
yeah.
got dinged for braking because somebody else stopped the car. Right? It was
Oh,
like,
no.
I mean, you.
So you
go.
just,
Yeah.
we're just charging you $5 extra because we blow.
So
Oh,
we're just
that's,
like, got it.
yeah. So they.
That's
Yeah.
it.
But-
They'll file a claim.
But to your point, it's obviously very effective as far as telling you what's going on, but they need to work on the rules of the technology behind it and what it creates. But if a crash does happen, those are things that can immediately send some information saying a crash has happened. Here's the location. Here's where they are. Here's the car, and can get help much faster. OnStar is pretty well known for that as well, even though they're not on a blockchain or anything. But if they know a crash has happened and you're paying for that service in that particular brand of vehicle, that's another way. So these are ways we can really start working quickly on when something happens in a car, and also people who drive 100 miles a day versus people who drive 5 miles a day shouldn't have to pay the same insurance, even though they tend to say, if you drive more than 5 miles to work, you pay the same amount of insurance as anyone who drives more than 5 miles to work, whether they drive 6 miles or 100 miles. So this kind of insurance IoT can help keep that information. And then it also will tell if you're kind of like me saying, "Oh, I work from home." Not really, but just to get a lower rate, they're going to know right away because you've got the devices, and all that can be recorded on a blockchain, and then that they can utilize that information to determine your rates and things. So property and casualty is an area that is not been quite tapped into, but it's getting tapped into from a blockchain standpoint. From an IoT standpoint, they definitely are moving ahead of the game, getting Internet of Things into vehicles. Let's go ahead and keep going. Health insurance. Oh my goodness. So I blew out my knee a year ago. Oh my gosh. And I'm paperless. I'm actually paperless, and you would not believe the stacks of paper I get being paperless. It's absolutely crazy. So if a lot of this information that the health insurance company keeps asking and having us send in and wanting this to follow up, if this type of stuff could be on a blockchain, it would be so much easier to file claims and get payments to your physician or to you, depending on how it goes. And again, that's all stuff back to what we were talking about, personal information, is that stuff can be stored somewhere else and the blockchain can point to it. So it would really help the healthcare industry and the insurance healthcare industry, especially if we could provide healthcare on a blockchain. MedRec is medical records, and that link is also going to be at the end of the presentation. Yes, go ahead. Reinsurance, we talked a lot about this when he was talking about our project, and one of the big problems is those reinsurers, they're kind of like the third party, because they aren't in the initial conversation. They're way out here, but they're super important because they're helping back up the insurance that's been given. So this helps bring reinsurance back into the industry. And keeps them, if we put it all on a blockchain, then everybody is, again, here's what he said, suffers heavily from the lack of information flow between organizations because they're on the outside in the current way. This brings them on the inside. A blockchain can bring them back in, so everyone gets communicated the same information all at the same time, and they have the trust of it. So they know. So how this could really help is huge. And again, another company we're showing.
PTI is a consortium.
Yeah. So we'll.
That's amazing too. If you just add like redundancy of IoT and you have out-of-the-box feed with that workflow, it's just more authentic.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's saving an that's you've got the car sensor and everything else.
next one.
Yeah. So the next one is our adoption. So obviously we know it's going to take some time, and everybody is making as much progress as they possibly can. But you need to, so we have internally focused use cases. So that's exactly what we've been talking about, is what some of our business partners have told us that we really need. So once we can get our internal business partners, our internal clients, having a trust and getting the data from them, then we can go out and bring other companies in. Like he said, when we brought the companies in for the first project we were talking about, the exchange, they were baby steps, but now they're like, wow, this is pretty cool. So they're getting all in. But it's almost like if we build it, they will come. So instead of going to them saying, hey, we're going to build it so they can see how it's going. Customer centric. Again, we've talked a lot about the customer facing. We need to address our customers and where their pain points are, and make sure that we're working with their pain points and making their life easier by putting things on a blockchain. And then adoption will come sooner. IoT, we've talked a lot about this. We want to make sure the IoT is capturing the correct data. So that's where blockchain can help, because the data can be trusted and checked and validated. So that's pretty much three of the top things. Do you have any more addition to that?
No. What would be your first case, small case for IoT? IoT seems like a big ask infrastructurally.
Yes. So we are looking at multiple areas. So how do we identify risk? I mean, the refrigeration thing that, so IoT will be using it not for, it's more for risk mitigation. So how do I identify that there is something going bad, and we know from a client perspective that if you do this, stop this so that you don't run into any issues. So we are working with autonomous cars, more from the autonomous platform as such. A lot of companies are coming up with that. Ford's coming up, Volkswagen is coming up with that. So in that area, but we've not crystallized a specific proof of concept that we thinking of. So maybe the next iteration, whenever we have, probably we'll have a better picture.
I think that's something we might want to discuss.
Okay.
Yes, I would love to, because we've been talking to a lot of startups on this thing. Like we've got car sharing companies, startups like Get Around and Duro and those things coming up. They want to price their risks, but how do I get the information of whose car it is, when it's getting rented, when it's getting used for personal use? So that's the area also. But let's connect. It would be good for us.
Okay, so basically in our conclusion, we kind of showed you a number of use cases where in the insurance industry, it's almost a no-brainer. Blockchain is absolutely needed because it can benefit immensely from blockchain to close some of these gaps and some of this waste. And then you're thinking, if you can do that, if you can end the fraud, you can end all the extra paperwork, if you can end the human errors, if you can end the corruption, how expensive would insurance be? I mean, it should be a lot less. It'll be quicker to pay, less money to the people who are insured, especially insurance on demand. That's a big one we really want to look at, is insurance on demand. Who needs to have higher, who needs to have lower, instead of just this one size fits all. This is where blockchain can really help us and start helping us get the data we need as well. Back to where we talked about the refrigeration truck. The data we would acquire as to what trucks have the same problem over and over and over again, and what trucks don't have the problem, and why does that happen? And that could be in anything, in the autonomous vehicles, in the lift type of situation, in anything. It's how do we measure all that? You can even do a warehouse like this. Maybe you're storing something that has to be at a certain temperature, and you're monitoring that, and their insurance is based on how you keep that warehouse at a certain temperature. So it's a type of insurance on demand, but it's really insurance on how do you care for what you're insured, what's insured. So a lot of this information is again, set up by a few insurance at the bottom before real change can start. But real change has already started. And we just need to keep getting more and more people on and then collecting the data so we can get out there and talk more and more about the success of what it's doing.
So there's a concept of progressive decentralization that I think we have been adhering to. So I've been playing with blockchain for some time now, and it started with massive hype, right? And then everybody started saying that blockchain's not the thing, but that's not right. So everybody tried to solve this problem, bringing 20, 30 people together and let's solve this problem and everything. And 20, 30 people, when you bring into a meeting, that meeting never goes, right? So bring in 2 or 3 people, focus on this problem, then you get all the consensus. And that's the approach that we've been taking. So we start small and then start expanding it to further. Because that's the
concept.
Even though it's finance, even though it's state,
and then expand.
on the website.
Okay, so I'm going to stop screen
Okay.
sharing. Yeah, we'll just. I think this is really, really awesome, and I just like to give you guys a round of applause. This we've covered so much ground in such a short period of time, and opened up so many opportunities and so many use cases, so much room for experimentation, where we're talking about, bringing all these different parties together and then tying in devices, and, just really exciting. So I think we should definitely schedule another session. Maybe we could make it a little bit more like a workshop, maybe set up some Hyperledger test nets or whatever, and start to expand, and maybe even open it up to some other companies and show this video and so forth. So some other entities. So that's pretty much it for tonight. Again, we're not going to meet in December, but in January we'll have, the proposal right now is to have a decentralized web 3.0 2020. But we have workshops, and we have, basically we're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I'd love to set up some workshops, have some hands-on stuff with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
We're gonna cut off the video now, but this will be available tomorrow. I'll upload it, and yeah, awesome. Good stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your excellent comments and questions. And we do want to talk to you a little bit, because we actually just created an official partnership with ASU. So we are a official ASU partner.